Welcome, guys, to ILWPOD. I'm your host, Justin Wright. Today, I am here with Axel Rico. How are you doing, man?
Woo! I am feeling and looking great. I am Axel Rico, Victoria's Secret, and I'm nice to meet you, my friend, and I'm ready to pot it up.
So, off camera, you mentioned you are getting married. I just want to say congratulations. Get that
Thank
out of the
you.
way. It's
Yeah,
a,
yeah,
it's an important part of life.
yeah. It's wonderful. My fiance, she's been my manager at sometimes in the professional wrestling biz. She goes by Torn Page, and even through the crazy lifestyle that I chose to live, which is wrestling and the theater and the squared circle and stuff, she still likes me a lot to get married to me. So it's pretty wild.
You know, as a wrestling podcaster, which some may argue is crazier or just equally as crazy as big wrestler, my fiance supports me just the same.
Appreciate it, man.
um, I'll start with the easy stuff. Do you want to, plug any social medias, any upcoming dates,
Oh man,
merchandise, stuff like that?
yeah. I mean, obviously, Axel Rico. I'm the only Axel Rico on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X, or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, that has like a shirtless dude or a guy doing a drop kick. So that's me. I always post all of my wrestling shows on my socials and stuff. So make sure to follow me there because I don't know when this is going to drop because I've got so far like a bazillion shows until the end of the year. I'm almost at 100 shows, so I'm trying to see how close I can get to it. But yes, follow me, Axel Rico, on everything.
Okay. Any merch?
Yeah, I've got a pro wrestling tees website where I have all the shirts and stuff. Right now I'm getting a whole bunch being made for local shows, so make sure to either hit me up. I'm always a big fan of fans hitting me up or friends hitting me up, being like, "Can I have a medium?" and then getting that to them or whatever, because I've gotten a lot of logos since I started into like newer stuff now, and I've got the only one with the computer that can make all the past and future designs and all that stuff come out. So hit me up or come to a show. That's the best time to get a shirt.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. In person is always the best time to get merchandise.
That's true because you get to have a conversation. I might give you a sticker. You know what I mean? Like that's just you don't get that anywhere else.
No, not at all. Um, Speaking of that, going to shows and seeing everybody is all, one reason we love this. But we all have a reason or a moment where we said, "Hey, I fell in love with wrestling." Uh,
Yes.
can you tell us whenever you knew?
Yeah, dude. So I was born in Puerto Rico and born and raised. I pretty much came to uh, the United States, even though Puerto Rico is still technically it's been a territory. But we moved to Texas. But before that, my uncles were always kind of fans for like local independent wrestling to the point where they would go to so many shows they actually like befriended one of the wrestlers. And being that I was like the first boy in our family, I don't have any brother or I have like cousins and stuff, but I was like the first. So I'm like the oldest of my cousins. And that was, for 18, 20-year-old uncles, they're like, oh, he's hanging out with us, every chance he can. So I remember we would always go to that guy's house and we would watch WCW, Raw, like during Raw's War, like during those early 2000s. And one of the first VHS tapes, I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah.
Um, one of the first VHS tapes that I was gifted was Halloween Havoc, where it opened up because those WCW VHS tapes were so like not like lined up like how we have like Peacock today. They would like throw in matches like if it stunk, it would just they just like skip it. So the first match on there was Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio with the giant pumpkin in the background. And ever since that, like once I saw how crazy, and my first the opening match like that I pretty much have in my head is Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio in WCW. And then after that, I became just like a hardcore super fan. Like I wanted to watch everything that I could. I watched SmackDown when it was on. I would see Raw. I never got into ECW until a little bit later, and now I've just, it went from like being a fan, and then once I became like a wrestler, I saw it differently and started to study more and see what people would do. And overall, if you're a wrestler, you're more of a fan than most fans. I firmly believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's definitely what ticked off. I think I still have that VHS tape somewhere, but seeing Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio during Halloween Havoc is definitely what kicked it off.
that's the Halloween Havoc where Eddie rips Ray's mask, right?
Yeah. With the whole
Okay.
purple one, like
Purple.
jumpsuit that goes into the mask, which is insane.
Ray did
Absolutely.
the insane like moonsault DDT.
Yeah. Somehow, yeah, over the top, Braun into DDT, like when no one thought that was possible in general.
Match was insane. It's definitely a great first memory.
Yeah.
I wish I was alive during those times. A
Hey,
little young, but yeah,
hey, I would have been, it was a VHS tape, so it was obviously not. I wasn't like seeing it live. I'm
yeah.
not that old. Hey,
My
buddy,
bad.
watch it.
My
Okay,
bad.
okay. Just kidding. But no, yeah, that it was a great way to kind of start into it, and that's gold. That's a memory right there.
Is that something like because I've watched some of your matches and you definitely got that faster paced
Yeah.
like style. Is that something you took from Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio?
I always consider them, I think just secretly in my head, I always see them as like I would consider them in my Mount Rushmore, but I think it is a little bit biased. I definitely try my hardest to be like, I see myself, I see myself as Axel Rico. But when I first started, I was like, I want to try to be as Eddie, I want to be Eddie Guerrero because when I would watch him just as like as a kid, as a fan, moving on, even past when he died, rest in peace. Like I would see that he wrestled the likes of Rey Mysterio and it was awesome. He wrestled Brock Lesnar, it was awesome. He wrestled like the range, the guy could wrestle anybody. So when I became like a trainee, I was like, I want to be that guy. I want to be the guy who can wrestle the big guys. I want to be the guy that can wrestle the small guys. I want to be the guys that can wrestle the different styles and stuff. And so I very much saw myself and trying to be just like that guy in general, because I always thought Eddie Guerrero, no matter who it was, even if it was against The Rock or, like Juventud Guerrero, or even when he like wrestled in ECW or like, IWA, wherever he was, I wanted to be like that. So I always considered Eddie Guerrero's style of being able to work with anybody, even in his style, like something I wanted to do and be that guy.
Okay. Growing up, were you a sports kid? Is that something like did you get involved in sports in high school or middle school?
Yeah, I was big into sports. I started like when I started growing up in suburbs of Illinois in the River Forest area. I would play baseball, basketball, soccer. Every year I would go back to Puerto Rico. I'd play volleyball. So I was always always sporty, always playing something. I think a couple times I even did a couple intramural tournaments of like ultimate frisbee. I did track and field. I was in state for doing the 4x4 because I had the best handoff time in my day, but not running can only get you so far compared to wrestling. So I was always like I always liked moving my body. I always liked doing sports, but it never, I don't know, it never really like clicked. I started in high school doing like theater, improv, and comedy, and being still like exercising and like taking sports and all that seriously, but I kind of had more fun doing theater and comedy. but I still did sports on the side. But I was like, man, there's something there because like I liked the sports, but I didn't like how serious the coaches were. I kind of liked the laid back feel of like theater, but I also didn't like remembering all the lines, all the monologues. So I kind of had the most fun just doing like improv comedy. And then when I graduated college and all that, and I found a little school for pro wrestling, which is kind of like the best of both worlds. I really, kind of saw it and was like, maybe I can do it, and it just took off from there. So I was always into athletics, but I didn't like being pushed, so hard to be like the best in one single thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where I really enjoyed being like a theater, like performing for like others to get laughs, to get an emotion out of it. But also I didn't really like, that little aspect, but it was the mixing of the worlds, which is, I believe, professional wrestling, of like athletics with theater, because our whole job is to make you believe in something. I consider professional wrestlers as professional liars, in a sense. And I kind of found that mixing of the world so cool. And I think that's what really got me to love it once I started actually doing it. And it also probably helped that I was a super big fan.
It couldn't hurt.
Well, it could hurt. It can hurt.
I could see it. Yeah. Going in, after college, what did the transition into training look like, and how did you go about finding the right school?
Yeah, so I was after I graduated, I very much turned into the like looking for a job. It was kind of boring because after college, you're trying to like find that job that you're gonna, whatever the, you're after, you have to find the job for the rest of your life type crap, which I never believed in. I was still doing theater, going into Chicago, performing in Chicago every weekend. So the what we call in the wrestling base, the worker mindset is there of like, I need to just do my Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday or Sunday through Thursday, and then the weekend is where I'm trying to get my trade in and try to get my, my face out there. And I actually met a friend at one of those like kind of like Comic-Con conventions. Okay. His name is Ari. He's actually a wrestler. His name's Ari Akuma, actually now one of my good friends in the local Chicagoland scene. And he told me like, hey, like if you really want to do it, I went to the school and it's called CSW, Chicago Style Wrestling. Immediately messaged them. I met the legendary Steve Boz, and right there, the rest is history. He told me they meet Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays for training. I bought knee pads at a what's it called, like the Goodwill for Sports. I play sports or played against sports. In Chicago, found some shoes in the same bin, and then just rest is history. I still, those shoes broke off. And I remember during like just before COVID or during like, COVID and all that stuff, the ones I cherished the most, a guy named Mustafa Ali would come to our, because he started in the Chicagoland scene. He saw that my shoes were going to, going to SHIT. I don't know if I can swear here.
You're free to do what you need to, man.
But either way, he saw that my stuff was tearing apart, because, it was just like at a little Goodwill box. And the next day he bought me my shoes, like legit wrestling shoes, because he saw that I really cared about it. And it was definitely a challenge, because you're, in most sports or, wrestling or anything like that, your mind is like to not want to, get hurt or fall down or, like protect yourself. And then wrestling is almost, and sometimes quite literally, the complete opposite. You have to like train yourself to, learn how to take a punch, how to, take a bump, how to, do all these things that, you haven't done forever. And your mind has been like, don't fall down, idiot, So
It's
it was
like
a
how to
hard,
get hurt properly.
sure. Even that, like, it still turns into just like, I have to let this person who I don't know, just in this small, smelly locker room area place, like punch me in the face. Like, ugh, it's a little weird, but yeah, it's been an experience, and since 2017 to today, it's crazy to look at myself before that.
So, like you mentioned, Chicago style wrestling being where you started,
Yep.
and you still do shows there today. What does that company mean to you as a whole?
So that, they're my home. I call them like my home base. Like if I were to play tag, I'm always gonna be you loyal to Chicago style wrestling. Um, it was like the most important thing to me. That was like my World Series or my Super Bowl win. It meant that like I did what I worked so hard, for so long, and finally got to the top of the mountain, where I always wanted to be. And I have so much love for that space. I've even become a trainer there, so every Tuesday I help lead.
Okay.
So it's like it's my home. And it's one of those places that even when before I started, it was kind of like a little, it was a little smaller, whatever. But now we're on IWTV. Now we're getting the likes of Matt Cardona. We're getting the Mooses. Like we're getting a lot of people wanting to be part of the show, and it's just so awesome of a place to just be a part of and be a main roster member of, and just in general to be with, because it just it starts from like a rinky dinky school into like, whoa, it's seen as pretty up there in the Chicagoland scene, and it's just an honor at the end of the day.
As somebody who's also in the Chicagoland area, it's definitely I'd consider it at least top three promotions in our area. Uh,
Hell, hell yeah!
it's something I see stuff for all
I
the
think
time.
there's a debate.
I haven't been able to go to a show yet, but it's something I always have my eye on because I mean, looking at the cards, they're all outstanding. So I just props to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all got an outstanding product and something. Hopefully, in the near future, I get to go experience live rather than just on a computer or a phone. um,
Hey man, I'm telling you, it's one of those shows that you never like. Each show is, awesome. Everything is always to 100 because everyone in that locker room gives it their all, and you never know who's going to pop up. Like I don't know if you remember this, but one day all of a sudden Will Ospreay just showed up. So it's just one of those shows that it might be worth a car ride over. Just saying.
yeah,
And I'll
100%.
let them know you'll be with me. You know what I mean? I'll be like, oh, it's okay, don't worry, he's with me. Don't worry about it.
Okay, I'll have to keep my eye out. I got my eye on the calendar.
All right,
Um,
damn it.
you were I don't want to say lucky, but you were fortunate to win the CSW World Title.
Yes,
I want to say in 2022, what Cage Match
yes,
says. What does
yes.
that win mean for you so far?
Well, kind of like how I mentioned before a little bit. It at that moment I felt like I did, I hit like as high as like when I walked into that school in 2017 when I first started training. I was like, you know what, I want to be that guy, because the people before were like Marche Rocket, Vic Capri, and just standouts in the Chicagoland scene. And I saw them. I was like, that's who I want to be. So when I was able to finally do it, which that by itself took about 5 to 6 months, of going, getting the the people wanted to see me win. I was going against a wonderful wrestler and a very strong, amazing dude named Joey Avalon, local guy in the Wisconsin scene, going all over the place. We were able to tear it down, and when I finally won that, like I said before, I felt like, I'm going to Disney World. I was like on top of the world. The fans were losing their minds. People were out of their seats, and I really felt like, I did it. I accomplished that goal, and ever since then, I always have that in the back of my mind as one of the best moments I've ever had, like ever. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm happy with it. No one can ever take that away from me. And yeah, it was a very, very awesome moment. And I was so happy just in total, because it means that, my growth from just being like a local nobody into trying this professional wrestling thing out, and I got the confidence enough from my local promotion to be considered their top guy. So it was a wonderful, wonderful moment for me.
What is you mentioned being the top guy in that promotion. What is that pressure like?
It it is it is a lot, like kind of like what I was saying, like with now how popular Chicago style wrestling has become. It is like, you're trying to grasp through the top in a crowd of like hundreds of people that want to be in that same spot. So it is very, very hard, but it really showed that like the work that I was doing and trying to be different, because it's so hard. Everybody from the likes of, we have people coming from the Black and Brave Academy in Iowa, people in Wisconsin, people in Indiana, people from even the likes of Chicago or places that I've never heard of, just want to come in and just try to become a roster member. It's a tough group, and a lot of talented people. So it was very, very stressful because, first of all, just getting, our crowd there, they're not easy. Let me also tell you, the Chicago style wrestling crowd is not easy. If you lay in a chop and it doesn't sound like it just made a shotgun blast, they will tell you you're weak. So on top of trying to be like the best professional wrestler and then the best performer for the people, and then also all that, and you have to fight with the guy next to me trying to get to the top two. It's very difficult, and I always tell everybody, like, you just gotta, it doesn't hurt to start from the bottom and just try to work your way up. As long as you continue and you show you want it, that's what Chicago style wrestling is all about, because every single other person in this locker room, in this show, wants it, and they're going to give it their all. So it's a lot of pressure, but I was ready for it, obviously, because I got it. That's just how it is. The pressure's hot. And my only takeaway was I forgot that usually the champion goes at the end, and our shows run like 2.5 hours. So just having to be there and just waiting and waiting. Sometimes it's like, dude, I'm like hyped up and I have to wait 2 hours, That was super stressful.
So in an instant like that, or any time, what do you do to motivate yourself and get yourself pumped up and ready for a matchup?
Well, one of my things that I like to do is watch the show. I'm a big fan of watching our for the show. We have a show, Battle Royal, all those matches beforehand, seeing what other people do, seeing all of the, maybe the Hall of Famers come in and do something. I just like watching the show and getting myself in the field, because our crowd is like there all the time, for people that they hate, for people that they love, for people just in general, for, they love saying the ridiculous chants. You know how wrestling fans are. They just come up with the silliest things, and it makes
Chicago's
me
insane.
stay in the zone. Seriously, yeah. So I always get the goosebumps, you know what I mean? Like the little butterflies in the stomach every time I get the gear on or the pants on and lace up the boots and lace up the knee pads and stuff. So as long as I still have that, I'm still in the zone. No matter what, I'm always thinking, just go out there, do what I do best, but staying in it, watching the show, seeing what other people do, enjoying it, busting my eyes open when somebody does like Rey Mysterio 450 onto the outside, catching it and doing a DDT. So that's kind of how I stay in the zone. And of course, once it gets closer to, the music is going out, maybe doing a couple push-ups, maybe, hitting myself, screaming, who knows what. I've been doing so much just to keep myself psyched in there. But as long as I still got the little goosebumps in the belly, I'm always ready for a show.
Perfect. I was going to ask, where did the name Axel Rico come from? Where did that originate from?
Well, my name is Axel.
Okay.
I love my name. I don't think a lot of people have it. My mom is an 80s rock star and was a big fan of, bands like Guns N' Roses, Kiss, and a lot of those 80s rocks, bands. So she loved the name Axel. Growing up, I never really met a lot of people named Axel. So like right there, it's a standout name.
Okay.
And Rico, I love Rico. It's 4 letters, just like my first name, and it's just in general. Like I am from the beautiful island of Puerto Rico, and Rico means rich or in like heavy in spirit. So I'm just Axel, rich in spirit. So I'm just. Okay. It's a good combo of the name. I always simple, easy, just Axel Sweet or Axel Rico, however you want to see it. It's just a good name, I think.
I like it. Not a complicated story, and it has some meaning to it. I like it. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I could go into specifics and make up a story, but I don't think you want to hear that.
I've had guys that have a 20-minute story just on their name. So it's a nice change of pace that it's just your name and you put your own spin on it, and it's cool. Doing my research.
Yeah, dude, because why let somebody write a. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, it was cutting in and out. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Uh-oh.
Still there?
Hold on. I think I'm losing you, friend. Yes, sir. I can hear you. Let me.
Okay, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My bad. Okay. I was gonna ask not a couple years ago, but it might be. On the indie scene, there was a Warrior Wrestling, which is a series of wrestling shows. You did one, a Fatal 4-Way with Sky Blue, Billy Starks, Gringo Loco, yep. All people who are well renowned in the Chicago area. What was that match like? And what was it like? I guess losing to somebody like Sky Blue.
Well, that's funny because I'll answer that question because it's secretly like 2 or 3 questions in one question. Yeah. So myself and Sky Blue, she started a little bit before me. She started in this training facility in Upper Illinois called PPW, and then she came over to Chicago Style Wrestling. So we actually trained together a whole lot. Okay. She was, like one of my first pretty close friends. And that day, because Warrior was huge before the pandemic, and the pandemic the pandemic's the pandemic, but when it was like hitting, I was always a big fan of Warrior. You know, it's just a crazy show. You know, you never know who is going to be there.
No.
And I remember the day I got asked to do it, I was moving. I was like I was driving to a U-Haul facility to move like furniture and all that. And I got an email that morning saying, "Do you want to be a part of Warrior Wrestling today?" And I was like looking at my phone being like, oh my God. And I remember just typing, "When do you need me? How can I, where do I need to be? You know, holy crap, blah, 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 blah." So I had to quickly call a friend because still had to move out,
Yeah.
I was literally moving out of an apartment. Called my friend, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm doing nothing." And it's like, "Okay, I'm gonna give you a lot of money, move my stuff out, but also drive me to Warrior, go back to my apartment, move out, move my stuff out, and then pick me up later." Like it was it was a very insane day of just, I thought nothing of it. I thought, like, wow, I can't believe I have to miss Warrior Day because I'm moving, and it was crazy. I got there and it was, super cool. First time I'd ever wrestled Gringo and Billy. Myself and Sky at that point, we'd wrestled, who knows, like 20 times. But it was a great show, a great crowd. Probably at that time, I don't remember what year that was probably the most people I'd ever wrestled for. But yeah, it was totally amazing. I'd do it again if the opportunity like that came up. But it was a great growing point because I met a lot of good people and friends from it, and got a lot of eyes on it through my friends like Wrestling with Unicorns. And just in general, it just helped as a great little social media push for like, dang, that was a big show and Axel killed it. And it was super awesome. Super awesome.
Nice.
Crazy, insane day, but like awesome day, if that makes sense.
And like from watching Warrior shows, they're always epic. Like the whole card is
Yeah.
stacked with, yeah, I mean, Brian Cage
Yeah.
and Casey Navarro and all these guys.
Yeah.
So like I'm sure like going into a show like that, is there more pressure to perform at a higher level because you're on a card with guys like that?
Yeah. Well, I always see, I don't know, I always get that mindset of it, but when I'm like in a show and I've already been asked to do it, I kind of have like that fangirl moment of like, holy crap, this is awesome. But then the second I'm in there, I am like, I don't know what it is. It's like I'm in an interview. Like I get very, very professional. I'm like, I know why I'm here or what I need to do. So that's just, I don't know what, I don't know. That part never like clicks with me because I've done stuff, like extra work for like the AEW, the MLWs, the TNAs and stuff like that. And it's always like the day before I'm like, oh, this is so crazy. What am I gonna? And then the second I'm in there, and they tell me what to do and what I'm supposed to do or what I'm doing that day, I'm like, yeah, so we'll do that. It's going to be awesome. We're, da 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 da. I never get nervous except for the general butterflies, but never like, it never really gets to me. I don't know why. It never has. It's like that professional, kind of like, exactly what I was saying, like set up for an interview, be all ready and stuff, and then just be confident. And, but yeah, it was one of those moments where I was like, this locker room is freaking stacked. This is so cool. Yeah, that was probably that was the first time I met Will Ospreay. Now I've met him like a whole bunch of times. I think he was wrestling Casey Navarro or something like that day. And yeah, that was super cool. But in that moment, I was like, oh, how are you? Oh, excuse us. We have to get this four-way prepared. Like I was so professional and just still like shaking hands and was still just living in that moment, so it was super cool. Super, super cool.
Nice. When you're in a locker room like that with guys with experience like Osprey, um,
Uh-oh.
do you ever get a chance to go and pick a brain, ask questions, gain advice, things
Oh
like
yeah.
that?
Oh yeah. I love I like, you know, having that little like locker room chit chat with anybody and everybody because it's always like ones that I would never expect. Like obviously, if Eddie Guerrero was alive today and I was ever in a show with him, I would find a way to be like, "Sir, can I have 1 to 4 hours of your time?" You know, to
Yeah.
just pick his brain about wrestling and stuff. But sometimes I'll just like go into a locker room, shake hands, find, like people to talk to that I wouldn't, or just get to know in general. And I've had like those moments of like, just talking the shit with like one of the coolest ones was talking with Glacier,
Okay.
the former WCW guy. I was in catering for AEW. He like sat down in the same table. He knew this other guy who was doing extra work with us, started chit chatting, and then we told us, he's like, "Who are you? What do you, where are you from?" This, and we ended up talking like about everything, like how to structure matches, things to think about, and that was super cool. Another one I did a seminar with Chavo Guerrero. He was so cool. He just wanted to do like a little. He was talking a lot, and then we did like beginning stuff, and he very much liked my footwork. He was saying like the fact not a lot of people think about that, and he was able. After we had that little talk, when it came for the rest of the seminar, he picked me to like. So I want you guys to do this, and like he was very cool. And afterwards, it was like what do you do? What's show me your stuff? Another one like that was like EC3. He wanted to see like how I was doing with promos and all that. So it's really cool. It's been always been like those people that I never expected to have those conversations with. And a lot of those other ones that are like people who aren't, super, super popular. Like one of my mentors, who I consider a very big mentor in my life, is Ricky Cruz. He's out of Iowa, but also born in Puerto Rico, done all the circuit in Puerto Rico. And we met up after COVID during, outdoors shows. And he like broke it all down for me, had those conversations. And a lot of people. I've had long talks with Mecha Wolf, and so many cool people, even with Sky, Dante Martin, and just being able to sit down and chit chat is just so super cool. And it's always those people that I just start little conversations with, and then it just gets to it. It's super cool.
As a podcaster or an interviewer, whatever, like we want to title it, I think that's my favorite part is just the conversation. Like not even going
Yeah,
in and saying, "Hey, I got an interview. I need to get this scoop." I just want to talk to this guy about wrestling. Like
yeah, yeah.
it's
You never know, like, yeah, you never know what people have gone through. You never know who knows what, who knows this, or just what you'll find from it. So I always find it like when you hit me up, I'm like, I don't know who this is, but like, let's just help each other out. We're both in the term starving artists, just trying to put our names out there. Why not just do that and also have a fun chit chat and get to know one another? It's always cool.
but and like I think the coolest part is there's guys I've had conversations with now that like if I'm not friends yet, it's somebody that I could see like, hey, I could be friends with this guy for a long time and just talk wrestling, which
Mm-hmm.
should be what the wrestling community is at. Like to the core, it's
Seriously.
just a family of friends talking about guys in their underwear.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's the best way into friendship I've ever heard of.
You mentioned AEW. I
Mm-hmm.
noticed you had, I want to say, either three or four matches with them on Dark and on Rampage.
Yep.
You want
Yep.
to? I know the two Dark matches. One was against the Bear Bronson and his partner. What was your dark
Yes.
experience like? And then what was your Rampage experience like?
I've done now I've kind of like lost count of how many times I've done just extra work in general with AEW. It's always been like jaw dropping because I remember the first time I went was uh, in the Wintrust Arena in Chicago. Went through security, and the first person who like it was like elevator doors opened up, and it was Mark Henry, and I was like, whoa, like this is so cool, and every single time that I went, I like kind of just found the experience of it, even just like even if I didn't get a match or whatever, I just found the experience and the conversations, whatever, so much fun. Because when I first started, they were still doing the dark tapings in the Universal Studios.
Yeah.
So like we would do something here in Chicago, and then we'd be asked to do like our extra matches and stuff at Universal, and everyone would be like so excited. It's like, oh my god, what do I have to do? How many more push-ups? And I'd be like, oh my god, that's where Scott Steiner was doing that equation crazy promo over here. And then here's where like Sting, and I'm like over here being like TNA, like, oh my god, they did that
All the
promo
spots.
here, like like I'm like, this is so cool, and they're like, hey, we need you to wrestle Jora Joel, or like whenever I got tagged up against the Bear Country, I'd be like, yeah, cool, but like, whoa, like, and then of course like meeting like some of the people, like meeting Serpentico when I was a kid in Puerto Rico, like, and he was just an indie guy, like he was like a really cool, awesome luchador wrestler, and I was like, holy crap, I watched you when I lived in Puerto Rico. And he was like, oh, that's so cool. Shake hands, and, meeting Big Show. And like the cool thing about that, I've been doing it, since like the dark days, or I don't want to say it like that, but like when they did dark, not like the
Yeah.
dark days of
They,
AEW.
the AEW
Is
Dark
that like
program days.
program days? Yes. Was that the like landscape and like the roster has like changed so much, and like as a dude who like just experience is like all about experiencing moments in life and all that stuff, like I had a conversation with Jeff Hardy, like, but this was like years after, like it was so cool, and I was like, hey man, we're like walking, it was during the Vegas one where it was like the Double or Nothing or one of them, and we were walking the same hallway, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna be an idiot if I don't say anything, but I am Axel and I'm a huge fan. He's like, oh cool, and like we were able to walk for 2 or 3 minutes, and he still was like asking me questions. And so the fact that like it was ranging from when I've done it, and every time I do it I will say like absolutely put me in whatever. And yeah, the most recent time I've officially done everything, so I've been on Dynamite, Rampage, Dark, and I don't know if I was like a security guard for ROH or something like that, but it's just cool to get that. And then when I know every time I've gone out, it's like my phone blows up of like fans of like, whoa, there you are in that corner. You were right here. If I freeze frame, you're right. And like that's the coolest thing ever. And the matches themselves were super cool. Everyone that I wrestled, I first wrestled George Joel. He was super cool, nice guy. Bear Country, they were so, like it's always like the biggest guys that are like the nicest sweethearts. They're like, oh, cool. What do you guys like to, blah, blah, blah. That was super cool. And then Rampage that one was like a resume maker because I was able to work, oh my God, what's the name?
The Acclaimed.
The Scissor Boys.
The Acclaimed.
Yes, the Acclaimed with Billy Gunn. So
yeah.
that was like super cool. And when when we were talking out the ideas and stuff, and they're like, so we're gonna do that to you, and then they pointed at me, it's like, hey, do you want to like take a whole bunch of moves from us and then have Billy Gunn do like and have all of us pin on you? I'm like, yes, like, are you kidding
Please.
me, dude? I used to like get I used to get in trouble for doing what you did at my school, like abso-freaking-lutely, man. Like, and no, yeah, it's always been just fun doing stuff like that. And yeah, getting thrown into like barricades from Marina Shafir and John Moxley was super, super cool. Yeah, it's always just fun doing stuff like that. And I would do it again every time that they ring over to me.
Definitely. I've met Billy Gunn once whenever I was like, I don't know, I want to say like 6 years old, and he was the coolest guy ever. Like,
Nice.
and I'm like, Dad,
Yeah.
it's Billy Gunn, it's Billy Gunn, it's Billy Gunn. He's like, son, just let him give you your autograph. And I had my dad. I want to say I had two or three. I had the old WWF world title, and I think I had him sign it like three times
Cool.
because I just kept saying, Dad, we got to go back, we got to go
Nice.
back. um,
No, yeah,
it,
he's a cool dude. That's awesome.
it's just definitely like those are moments you'll never forget. Like even laying down for Billy Gunn, that's check
Sure.
it off. um,
Why not?
W doing extra work. I've heard like I've talked to guys like Chico Adams, who's known for doing extra work everywhere.
Mm.
That a lot of the guys in those situations kind of are set back. They're quiet. They try to stay out of the way. Is that how you approach doing extra work, or are you trying to pick minds, figure out what's going on, trying to get involved, things like that?
Well, it really depends. Kind of like I've said, I'm very obviously I'm a very sociable person, but of course, I treat everything like if I help out or make a new thing at a new promotion or stuff like that, I'm always dressed nice. I'm always very professional. Because sometimes I've been in, like when I did TNA in Chicago, that was like the night that they were being all secretive because Jeff Hardy was coming to help Matt and they were going to reunite and stuff. So we had to be very shush shush. So sometimes I've been, sometimes like, okay, I get it. Everybody's on high alert because they don't want anybody, like posting a selfie or, you know what I mean? And so I was like,
Yeah.
I get it. Some days it's just been like, you know what, we got nothing for you, but, feel free to chill out in catering, talk to people, whatever, whatever. Or some days it's just been like, okay, we need you guys here. We need you guys here. We need you guys here. We need you, like, and be ready at this time, be in this specific spot. And, just in general, I just kind of roll with it.
Okay.
I know it is like, don't get me wrong. It is, like if it is very intimidating because it is like, you don't want to mess up. You don't want to, do anything. You don't want to step on, you don't want to step on a wire that all of a sudden turns off all the lights and now they can't do a show. That's always those paranoid little like things that you're thinking of. But I always firmly believe, like you're here for a reason. They ask you to be here for a reason. And why not just be you? I'm not over here, live tweeting and be like, here I am next to Ruby Soho. I'm so cool, but just being like, oh, hello, good to see you again. How are you? Just not being like being the fly on the wall, experiencing that moment, but also like, be you because you don't want to be known, like if you're doing extra work, especially I'm trying to be a wrestler and I am a wrestler. I'm not trying to be like, oh, I don't want to say anything because then how do they know who I am? So don't be afraid to be you in anything in life.
So you'd say you try to mix it up. You try to meet a happy medium.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. That whatever. Usually it depends on the whatever the heck is going on or however I feel that day. Maybe if I haven't had a lot of caffeine, maybe I won't be as social. I don't know. Who knows?
Fair enough. Um, upon doing
Yeah.
research, I noticed you did some work with the NWA. You've done a couple matches. One of those was a win over
Yeah.
or not Billy Idol, Brian Idol. What was that experience
Yes.
like, and what was it like working Brian Idol?
Well, so that's, it was another one of those things where I found out that NWA had kind of done some shows in the Chicagoland scene, which is like really cool because I always believe in like if like a place like Chicago style wrestling could like tour, that's like what you want. You want to be a part of a promotion that goes all over the place because that's a way to see show different audiences yourself and like with that same name. So I was like, oh, that's super cool. Like, may it be the number 4 or 5 promotion, whatever the legit number, whatever your opinion is on it, that by itself as like a person trying to put their name out there is freaking sweet for anyone. Because I firmly believe if like you need to make your name known on TNA or MLW or New Japan, like go out there because that's going to give you different eyes. So when like Chicago was like one of the territories that they decided to start making the territory days, I'm like, that's pretty cool. I'd love to be on it. And then I got asked to do it. And I'm pretty sure that week, it was pretty much, it was quick. It was one of those things of just like, hey, you want to do this? I was like, yeah, duh. And then probably 2 days before the show, they're like, also, you're going against an NWA signed guy named Brian Idol. I'm like, whoa, okay, that's pretty nuts. And the fact that, whatever if you ever see the match or whatever type of, either way, I got his shoulders down is all I'm trying to say. 1, 2, 3. And to be able to like say I've got more wins in NWA than losses is pretty impressive, if I say so myself.
Yep.
And it was a very fun experience. I'm a big fan of everyone I've met, to the point where they did a Riot Fest show when they were here in Chicago. Like they had NWA sponsor like wrestling all throughout the weekend. And I was able to wrestle like people like him again, and there's champion Alex, Loserman, and the likes of people on Sunday and whatever. And then I did their recent show where I came up victorious again, and it's very cool to be on the email with people that get the same email from like NWA, and it's very cool to, I'm a big fan. Reach out again because right now, I've got more wins than losses. So like, I feel like at least a text or two of like, hey man, we need to do something with you. Hopefully
it's in the near future.
Hey man, they just got on the CW. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it is. And somewhere like that, you never know what to expect.
That's true.
Upon doing research, another big promotion or like historic promotion you've worked for was OVW. I believe you did one this year. What was that like? And I know like right now, Al Snow has a lot to do with OVW, and did you get to interact with him at all? And just tell us a little bit about the OVW experience.
Yeah, so I worked with Great Lakes Championship Wrestling, which is GLCW, which is a pretty big promotion in Wisconsin, with people with wrestlers like likes of Cal Hero and Drew Hernandez, and a lot of people who have been or are currently with OVW. So when they came to the Milwaukee, they reached out, and I said absolutely, because they saw that I've wrestled Cal Hero and wrestled a lot of guys that they wrestled with. I got to wrestle one of EC3's students, 2 of them. Or that weekend I got to wrestle 2 of them, and it was super cool. It was very fun. One of the first times I had met Al, but in a not just like a fan expo type thing. I actually met him like in a promotion. So it was very cool. I shook his hand. I asked, picked his brain. I was like, thank you so much for being here. What do you need from me? What do you, is there something, something to look out for? And he just said, just, we brought you here for a reason, do what you do. And it was really fun. It was very cool. I got that I forgot the name of the place, but right there in Milwaukee, it's just a legendary area right there by where the Bucks play. It was super cool. And it was around people who I knew. And even that day, I made a lot of friends from working. EC3 came up to me and was like, that was awesome. That's what it needed to be. Thank you so much. All this. And it was very cool. It was one of those moments where I like went through the curtain and people came up to me, and that like meant the world, because it's, OVW has that reputation of like, it used to be NXT, and it's got so much connection with all over the wrestling world. So the fact that I had, that type of audience coming to me and shaking my hand, and it meant the world.
Definitely. It's got to be heartwarming going to somewhere like OVW and getting recognition for what you've done and worked so hard to do.
Woo! Yeah, and especially with everyone's journey, to just even like just have anyone come up to you and be like, good job. That's what it's all for.
Great Lake Championship Wrestling, they do the Blizzard Brawl every year,
Yep.
correct?
Yes, they do.
Okay. I've been to 2 of them, and those are excellent shows every time.
Yes.
Something that like is plug worthy on the aspect from like a fan. I met X-Pac, Road Warrior Animal, Hornswoggle.
Yep.
I sat next to Angelina Love, which isn't crazy. Like, so, definitely an experience that is well worth it, and I think it's coming up soon.
Yeah, no, this is going to be, I don't know if I'm going to be part of it, but I know I've been asked to come help out. So it's going to be my first ever Blizzard Brawl. Last year I was out, I was cleared, but I had just been cleared from, I shattered my clavicle. I don't know if that's on the cage match or whatever. The year before that, I had just started my relationship with GLCW, so I didn't want to step on toes and be like, put me in it. I know I just debuted, but like put me at the top. But now this is gonna be like my first, official one, being, like a main roster member for GLCW. So and that show's just huge. The lineup, the fact that they have, like Scotty Tuhati and his son going against Al Snow, and like the fact that Zila Fatu is going against my best friend Joey Avalon, and just all these like big star matches, and like Sabu is going to be there, and like the laundry list that they always get every year. Woo! Like to even be a part of it, and to be able to like pop in and out of the locker room of that caliber, that's going to be nuts.
And I could tell you, like, as a fan, they make the $25 ticket price well worth it. Like,
yeah, 100%.
Even like as far, you mentioned Sabu, like talking to Sabu is not a cheap adventure. I know personally, not a cheap adventure. So being able to go as a fan and say, hey, I get to buy a T-shirt from Sabu, have a small conversation, go talk to, I think Wendy Richter's on there. Just great names that, and experiences you'll never, like, I got to do a crotch chop with X-Pac and wear Road Warrior Animal's shoulder pads, which my dad was so pissed because I put the shoulder pads on and he was like, I watched the Road Warriors growing up, not you. Yeah. I was like, Dad, I'm putting them on.
I had that moment with Great Lakes, because the show before this Blizzard Brawl one, they had the tribal king be there, Haku.
Oh,
and I was able to like shake his hand. And my uncle in Puerto Rico used to be a blackjack dealer. So one day after like WWE was doing like a house show in Puerto Rico, him, Haku, Undertaker, and all these other people came to his table. And they played for like an hour or so. And then my uncle was a big fan of like Haku and the like, the crazy, the head shrinkers or whatever I think their name was or whatever. And they have like a picture of him like trying to like squish his head and bite it. And so I took a picture with him, and my uncle was the first one to be like, "Hey, dude, what the? You weren't even there, man. Like, what the heck? You can't just get a cool picture with him, like."
Yeah,
And that was, yeah, that's super awesome, and I can't wait to be a part of, like the bigger of the shows. But every time GLCW has something, I'm going over there again.
100%. Something I glanced over earlier, which I meant to ask.
Sure.
You mentioned being able to go to shows and stuff in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a Puerto Rican crowd and an American crowd?
Well, I'm trying to, because I've been to the first ever like show I went to was when I was like 4 years old. So to remember all the way back like of that, I probably was like, like, yeah, this is cool, like not really paying attention, you know what I mean, in comparison to now. Um, but this last January or December into January, I celebrated Christmas and New Year's with my family. My fiance came to meet my family, and I was able to like, as a wrestler, go to like a training school and see a show. And to actually, that was like actually see, you know what I mean? Like not remembering it
Yeah.
as a 4 year old, and I do see like there are similarities, but it is different. I don't know if you saw the like WWE pay-per-view in Puerto Rico where like
Yeah, with
Bad
Bad
Bunny.
Bunny and Damian Priest.
So it's like that, like it's like the similar energy of like you gotta still work them. You know what I mean? They're not just gonna give the everything to you. Like you gotta, like the guys who did it, obviously most of them were speaking in Spanish, but like you still have to be clever, you still have to be entertaining, and like they still give you crap. You know what I mean? Like the second you buy a ticket, it pretty much means like you can do whatever the hell you want. So like they're, even if you're saying like, yeah, they love me, they could still be like, boo, but they're gonna say like bad things in Spanish, like and like instead of like the clap, 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 it's like, you hear the wepa or like the ooh-wah, which is like a not a lot of one of my friends, like when that was going on, was like, what the hell are they saying? It's like, well, you don't know, like like it pretty much means, something like ooh wah is kind of like as if you're going for something and you're like winding it up and then bam, but it's such
The
a
wind up
it's
noise.
just like yeah, something like that. It's like as if you're like working, like the crowd's giving you that momentum to land it. They want to see it, and
Okay.
but it is very similar like to like a normal wrestling crowd. Being that I've worked lucha shows, American style shows, and like, stuff in like Michigan, Las Vegas, and Florida. Like everybody, I always consider every crowd and every show different. It all has their similarities. You still gotta tell a story out there, But I thought Puerto Rico's, like every other crowd, but just, they're what they normally see and experience is different than what we see and experience. So like, instead of just going like, you suck, they'll just say like, bendejo, like it's just, there's similarities, but just slightly different.
Okay. Um, I've heard like they can be like, I don't know how to word it. Maybe what am I looking for? Like they can be a rougher crowd. Like
Sure.
they're
Oh
they're
yeah.
harder. They can either be harder to please, and they kind of like a wild Japanese crowd. Like they know their stuff. They know what they're looking for. They're not casual fans. They pay attention.
Yeah,
Um,
I believe I can see that. You know, from what I've seen, like obviously, like like if I were, because I know like Spanish or I know how to say stuff, like I can respond to somebody. Like if like if I'm at a lucha crowd and somebody says something in Spanish that like, maybe like someone like yourself or just someone who doesn't know, the lingo or the like, like that's
the
something that
slang.
isn't, the slang and stuff, like I can quickly respond to it and all that. And but I will say, like, it's very much like a lucha crowd in the sense that, like, if you lay in a chop, they're gonna say do it again. Or if you lay like a very impressive move, they're gonna be like, all right, that was good. You're slowly getting me. Like it's just I think like the way to put it is like every show you start back at zero, if that makes sense. You got to work me back into liking you, if that makes sense. A little bit more than
Okay,
an American.
that makes sense. Because,
Mm-hmm.
like here, for instance, yeah, one crowd sees you as a baby face, they're going to
Yeah.
continuously, they're going to remember that. It's not
Yes.
like you took the memory card out, and not that they don't remember you. It's you gotta gain back all that progress.
Yes, yes. But yeah, I will probably say like the one thing that I would do remember is like one person in a match like chopped somebody and it wasn't as like I said, as loud as a shotgun. And I remember like in the intermission and stuff, like a fan went up to that wrestler and was like, "You chopped better last show," and then just walked away. I'm like, "Whoa, dang,
He
man,
remembered.
that's wow, that's bogus." But hey, dang, man, like so. Crowds are crowds. Crowds are crowds at the end of the day.
I think it's one of those that like the audience is keeping the wrestler on his toes. Like, hey,
Yeah,
we watch you, we remember these things. Like, don't half-ass it this time because you didn't last time.
yeah, that's right. That's true.
Okay. Um, I was gonna ask. We mentioned Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio. In wrestling, there's so many guys. There's so many characters. Who would
Mm-hmm.
you say are like some of your biggest inspirations? And if you had to pick, one or two like dream matches, who would you say those guys would be?
Well, obviously, like I've given all the praise to Eddie Guerrero. Like, if he was here today, or if I had like a way to manipulate time and space and get it so that I could wrestle him, hands down, would sell my soul or cut a finger, whatever I need to put in the witch's cauldron to make it happen. Absolutely. Um, and I do think, obviously, just because it's in the brain of like my first ever memory that got me to love wrestling. I'd love to wrestle Rey Mysterio, now or in his prime or whenever. I just think that would just be like another one where it's like my first match ever was seeing one of these two, and one of them is still alive and killing it. You know what I mean? And still has the opportunity to wrestle. Um, that would be one. Um, Obviously, like I don't know if you're like a fan right now and you don't want to, like, as a wrestler, don't want to wrestle the likes of like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, then what are you? Like if you had the opportunity and if like both of them were like in a room with you, it's like, hey, so I need you to do this. You just tell me when, why, how, like
What are we doing?
absolutely. Exactly, right? Like if you're a fan, right? Like I still think like even if you're only like 13, 16 years old, who The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin is. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I firmly believe that. Um, but I think for me, because when I remember like watching the SmackDowns and all that live, I thought the coolest character that I'd love to wrestle, but just in like a specific era, would be like Red Mask Kane. I always thought he was the coolest character, the coolest dude, the strongest guy, could lift up Big Show and throw him over the top. I'd lose horribly in that prime Kane. Like even if I like you know, started training now, and if I had 6 months, I'd still lose horrifically to that prime of a Kane. But I think that'd be coolest. So I think, yeah, something like on the likes of that, Eddie Guerrero, obviously Stone Cold or The Rock, Rey Mysterio, and definitely like when he had that red across the chest, just one arm out, red mask Kane. That'd be the coolest.
I like it. I like
Yeah.
it. Um, With that said, my next question, and always a fun question. You mentioned Mount Rushmore at the beginning.
Yep.
Um, there's no right or wrong answer. What's yours?
That's always the hardest because it depends on my flavor of the week.
Okay.
For at least like the number 3 and 4 spot. Because for a while it was because obviously the two that I'm pretty sure you could guess right off the bat would be Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, for
Yep.
sure. Like those ones, those two would never move. The 3 and 4 always change. Like I always have like a cutting crew, like taking out one face and then putting on another one. Um, because it really depends because I always like to do every 2 weeks or 1 week or whatever, I'll kind of just like study a wrestler. So for like a while, one person who I like, saw a lot of his stuff, even in like Mexico, Japan, was Tajiri. I always thought he was one of the most entertaining, coolest guys to watch. Like the fact that in 2016, at like 50 years, almost 50 years old, he was still doing the Cruiserweight Classic where he was
Yep.
wrestling like like prime, like Rich Swan and like all these other people. I'm like, that is hands down one of the coolest dudes ever. And I'd love to wrestle him. So he was on there for a while, but now I've kind of transitioned. I'm kind of in like a Shawn Michaels because he's honestly like probably one of the best entertainers and wrestlers overall. And then that 4 spot, usually it's whoever, it's the flavor of the week. It's either Stone Cold or The Rock because like without them, like those are my memories of like wrestling. Like those are like the top guys that I saw as like that is the most entertaining or the best wrestler in the world. When I was watching it in the early 2000s, into WrestleMania 17, 18, you know. So I'd probably say those. I think that's a safe Mount Rushmore of Rey Mysterio because when right now if anybody sees that mask, that's
You know
Rey
who it is.
Mysterio,
I got it. I got it right here.
right? Like
Right
in,
there
in
on the
any,
desk.
no matter the color, no matter the like how he spins it, the second you see that, if you're
You
a
know what it is.
hardcore wrestling fan, you know that, and he's made lucha libre known to the world.
It's mainstream because of Rey
Yes.
Mysterio.
Eddie Guerrero, that's for me. I think he's the best wrestler ever. I think if he was still alive today with, like if he had more time into like he'd be like maybe 54 right now. Could you imagine the likes of wrestlers we could have seen him wrestle,
I just want to say, imagine Eddie versus Dominic.
Seriously, I would love to see that
That'd
right
be
now.
amazing.
I was always like nitpicking because during the time where he was awesome, AJ Styles was just starting. So I was like, oh, if I could, like those two would have knocked it out of the park. And then like just fantasy and booking. I think Eddie Guerrero needs to be up there. 3 right now for me is Shawn Michaels because without him, I think that generation of into the 80s, 90s wrestlers, like he took it to a whole nother level, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because he, like doing that ladder match, for the first time in WWF that like took off, and then his Hell in the Cell, like his first, like he was the first person to be in a Hell in the Cell match with The Undertaker, like that
And he
changed.
can wrestle anybody.
Seriously, like
Like
anybody. Absolutely anybody. And then I think right there, fourth and technically fourth and fifth, it changes. However, is The
Rock and
Rock
Austin.
and or Stone Cold, hands down.
Okay. I'm gonna throw in a bonus question.
All right.
What is your favorite era of Eddie Guerrero?
Ooh, dang man, that's tough because like I said, I watched it during like the early SmackDown days.
I was gonna say like that 2002 Raw era when he was fighting Van Dam and guys like that when he fought The Rock.
Yeah,
That's my favorite.
Mullet Guerrero was pretty good. I'm probably gonna say around that time, but probably when he was Intercontinental Champ, when he was messing with like the Big Show, and he was like when he was doing like Los Guerreros too, where he's actually
Okay.
showing that he could wrestle like the likes of Kurt Angle, but then the next week could make Big Show eat a burrito that made him constipated. You know, like, so the fact that he was doing amazing matches and still being like funny and endearing, like, and then being able to cut promos on like The Rock and all that stuff. So I think that, which is still in the same area that where you're kind of talking about, where he still hasn't really, where he, you know, where he cut his hair, but he's still kind of that still lying, cheating, stealing.
I think that
So
was right after he came back to the
yeah,
WWE.
one of
So
one of those times. But I think that I like all of them because like even when he was messing around with China, that was great. But
it was gold.
it was gold. But I don't know, man. That's tough. But I'm probably being right when he came back and he cut the mullet is probably just an inch over mullet Guerrero, just
Okay.
a little bit, just a little bit.
I lied. I'm going to throw in one more bonus question.
Oh my God, so many, so many, so much,
You're
dude.
just it's a good interview, so I had to throw in another one.
Yeah.
So being inspired by Guerrero, have you used any of his antics? You know, the hit the chair, throw it to the ref, lay down, any of that stuff?
Oh, all not like recently, but yeah, whenever I can, I always think like sometimes if you know, like I know I'm wrestling somebody, you know, and the fans have seen it, you know, done a bajillion times, how can I incorporate it? Most of the times if I'm like home alone eating a meal and I just want to put something on, I will like put on Peacock and just put in Eddie Guerrero and see what he did, you know, January 19th. You know what I mean? Just like seeing what tactics and whatever he used. Um, I have done the chair one. That I mean, but like, you know, that's like a crucial moment. Every wrestler should have that in the back of the head, and also like to consider like, what if he does that? What do I do? You know, and I think one of the ones that I think didn't go super well. I tried to do the like untying of the boot, didn't really
Didn't
work
work.
out. That one's hard. That one's hard. Um, but yeah, no, that definitely when I had a little bit of a run with my fellow Puerto Rican friends, their Caribbean Arrogance, Shuko and Jay Manny from Wisconsin. Lots of like, hey, look over here, guy slides in, belt shot, you know, Chavo, Eddie, stuff like that. And it's always been like cool, but try to make it like using that influence, but also making it your own, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Um, you mentioned the Eddie and China scenario, and immediately to my head came the flowers with the lead pipe in it.
Yep.
Just a classic spot. And I was like, I wonder if he's ever tried to incorporate these things into a
Yeah.
match because everybody has their Eddie spot that they try or an attempt.
Yeah, I know when I, you know, I told you my fiance used to be my manager. Sometimes she would throw a belt, you know, in the ring, just so happened to, you know, like
Just so
very
happened to find it.
like where'd that come from, you know, and you know, very much, you know, those little things of hiding it, but of course, you know, you don't want to set it up the same, if that makes sense. So like we would do it so that she had like a suitcase she'd come out with instead of the roses and then the pipes there, you know. Make it, like I said, like using that influence, but then making it my own. That's what we've done.
I always end off on the show on a word, um, excuse me, a word of advice to a fellow wrestler, to somebody aspiring to be one. You got any
Yes.
good advice for
Yes.
the fans?
So the way I think about everything when it comes that has helped me so much in wrestling is and in general and in life and everything is don't live with the what if you understand what that means.
Yeah.
So when an opportunity or anything shows itself and you think to yourself, oh man, that sounds awesome, but you know, like right there, stop, you know, like do it, because I had that moment of like, but what, like whatever. And if I would have stuck with that thought, I wouldn't be a wrestler. Like that was to go into the school. That was to, and then I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I've had meeting the like wrestlers that I had, and meeting the likes of like people who I watched in wrestling, when I was a fan, like the Rikishis, the Chavo Guerreros, doing the seminars, working with OVW. Like if I like had that motive, like, but like, what if I, okay, maybe I shouldn't, like never live with those what ifs. If you have an opportunity or if you want to try something, of course, it's going to be hard. You know what I mean? Like if you were to just be like, today I'm going to be a wrestler, and then WWE calls you, that ever happens, please tell me what the hell you did, because I'd love to know what the secrets are. But it's one of those grueling processes. Some people get it faster than others, some people don't. But how are you going to know unless you do it? Like why not take those steps? And then if it's not for you, it's not for you. But like taking that with life, like if this interview, I got an email for this interview. What if I don't, maybe I don't want to do, like, just, it doesn't hurt, and it's, like if you find out at the end of the day, like, oh man, if you were at this one show, there was a promoter for WW, you know what I mean? Like, so that's why I always consider and try my hardest to not live with the what ifs, go out there, do it, because at the end of the day, this is like, I'm seeing through this, like, you know what I mean? Like, I love it when people post on social media, seeing their like moments and awesome experiences. It's like, you want to do that exact same thing. So like, go out there, take those opportunities, and don't live with the what ifs.
Got it. Sounds good.
Yes, sir.
Axel, thank you a million times over. Great interview. It was a great time. I had a blast.
Me too, my friend.
Can we do part two?
Hey, you let me know, maybe like whenever, a couple months or whatever. So like, I don't want to give you the same old interview. Hopefully some things have changed in between there and whatever. But absolutely, I'm always down. Like I said, from one starving artist to another, like let's just help each other, get ourselves out there, share each other's things. That's why like I always share my friends' posts on my Instagrams and socials, because we're all just trying to do something with this crazy thing called life. So absolutely.
I love it. Can't wait. So we'll leave the fans off with, we'll see you next time.
Yes.